Good morning, City Church kids. This is Nathan. Welcome to our latest episode of our daily podcast. We want this to be a moment of sanity for the start of your day, a moment of truth in God's Word, a moment of grace. I'm sad today. I'm sad because even though I'm outside, it's because I can't go home. Let me show you. This is the house I live in. But I can't go inside because there's this dog and he will not let me in. What's also known is this story is also a story of two others that cannot go home. And so let me tell you of that story today. It's called The Terrible Lie. Adam and Eve, they lived happily together in their beautiful new home, and everything was perfect, but just for a while, until the day when everything went wrong. You see, God had a terrible enemy. His name, do you know it? His name is Satan. And Satan was once a beautiful angel, but he didn't want to be just an angel. He wanted to be God. He grew proud and evil and full of hate, and God had to send him out to heaven. Satan was seething with anger and looking for a way to hurt God. He wanted to stop God's plan, stop this love story right there. So he disguised himself as a snake, and he waited in his garden. Now God had given Adam and Eve only one rule. They just had one job. Don't eat the fruit from that tree, God told them, because if you do, you think you'll know everything. You'll stop trusting me, and then death and sadness and tears will come. You see, God knew that if they ate from that fruit, they would think they didn't need him, and they would try to make themselves happy without him. But God knew there was no such thing as happiness without him, and life without him wouldn't be life at all. As soon as the snake saw his chance, he slithered slightly to Eve. "Does God really love you?" the serpent whispered. "If he does, why won't he let you eat the nice, juicy, delicious fruit? Poor you. Perhaps God doesn't want you to be happy." The snake's word hissed into her ears and sunk down deep into her heart like poison. "Does God love me?" Eve wondered. Suddenly, she didn't know anymore. "Just trust me," the serpent whispered. "You don't need God. One small taste, that's all, and you'll be happier than you would ever dream." Happier than you would ever dream was the promise he gave her. And so Eve picked up the fruit, and she ate some. And Adam, he ate some too. And a terrible lie came into the world. It would never leave. It would live on in every human heart, whispering to every one of God's children, "God doesn't love me." And sadly, it wasn't a dream. This was a nightmare. A dove flew from Adam's hand. A deer darted into the thicket. It was as if they were frightened by something. A chill. It was in the air. Something strange was happening. They had always been naked, but now they felt naked and wrong, and they didn't want anyone to see them, so they hid. Later that evening, as God was taking his walk, he called to them, "Children." Usually, Adam and Eve loved to hear God's voice and would run to him, but this time they ran away and hid in the shadows. "Where are you?" God said. "Hiding. We're afraid of you." "Did you eat of the fruit I told you not to eat?" God asked them. Adam said, "Eve made me do it." "What have you done?" God asked. Eve said, "The serpent made me do it." and a terrible pain came into God's heart. His children hadn't just broken the one rule, they had broken God's heart. They had broken their wonderful relationship with him, and now he knew everything else would break. God's creation would start to unravel and come undone and go wrong. From now on, everything would die, even though it was supposed to last forever. You see, sin had come into God's perfect world, and it would never leave. God's children would always be running away from him and hiding in the dark. Their hearts would break now and never work properly again. God couldn't let his children live forever, not in this type of pain, not without him. There was only one way to protect them. You have to leave the garden now. You have to leave the garden now, God told his children, his eyes filling with tears. This is no longer your truly home. It's not the place for you anymore. But now they left the garden. God made clothes for his children to cover them. He gently clothed them, and he sent them on a long, long journey out of the garden, out of their home. Well, in another story, it would all be over, and that would have been the end. And so, I don't have my permanent home now, but I'm on a journey, and I'm going to go look for my new home. And I'll tell you about that next time. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Good Morning City Church podcast. Until then, stay well and do good. Da-na, da-na, na, na. Hey, I just wanted to give you all a little bit of an update. I have a place to live now. It's not my forever home, but the story didn't end, and the story won't end. In fact, that story that we talked about yesterday is still going on. In fact, let me tell you the rest of it. God loved his children too much to let the story end there. Even though he knew he would suffer, God had a plan. A magnificent dream. One day, he would get his children back. One day, he would make the world their perfect home again. And one day, he would wipe away every tear from their eyes. You see, no matter what, in spite of everything, God would love his children with a never-stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. And though they would forget him and run from him, deep in their hearts, God's children would miss him always and long for him. Lost children yearning for their home. Before they left the garden, God whispered a promise to Adam and Eve. It will not always be so. I will come to rescue you. And when I do, I'm going to do battle against the snake. I'll get rid of the sin and the dark and the sadness you let in here. I'm coming back for you. And he would. One day, God himself will come. And so our journey continues, but I'm going to go inside, and I hope you all have a good day. Stay well and do good.